Welcome to the MVP podcast, where we talk about anything NBA. I am Sam Holcroft, alongside Geigh and Payton Thompson. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to see all of our basketball and football content. Follow us on Spotify at MVP Podcast. And for football content, follow us on Spotify at NFL MVP Momentum Podcast. So today we're going to do technically our third edition of our Superstars and Stars debate, even though the first one never saw the light of day because we recorded for too long. But we did technically our first official one 2 years ago, where we had us three and Paul. We went through all the superstars and stars. It was a good 2 hours, maybe even more. But this time we kind of know what we're looking for. We kind of know a little bit more of what we kind of were wanting. Like last time was the rough draft. This is the final draft. This is where we get it right.
Final draft one.
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna agree. We're gonna agree on everyone, right? Like this is gonna be quick. No?
Right.
And that first one that no one saw, we said Tyrese Haliburton was gonna be a superstar in that one. So like, bro, we were cooking, and no one got to say we were cooking to ourselves. We called everything.
That was the last time.
No, it was
the very first one.
We never recorded.
Oh, gotcha.
Ant just got drafted, and we said he is the future face of the NBA too.
Yeah, bro. We were our takes,
but that take isn't that crazy.
Zion,
like that
even,
take.
We had a
sense.
Zion take in there or something like that. We had something about like Zion will never see the playoffs or something.
Well, anyways,
it was crazy.
We're here for this year's.
Okay.
We're here for this year's.
I'm just saying.
But okay, so let's get into some of the kind of the criteria or rules that we had to follow. So let's see. Sorry. Okay, so we made it just like last time. You can only have a maximum of 8 superstars. Now, realistically, are there probably like 10 or 12? You could debate that, but just to kind of create a debate of you left this guy out, like we just limited it to 8. And then you could have only combined 35 total superstars and stars. I believe both of you had 8 superstars, so you had 27 stars. I had 7 superstars and 28 total stars. This helps create debate and limits us from having the same list, and focuses on us making cuts that we necessarily don't want to, but they just didn't fit our criteria. So speaking of criteria, Geigh, go ahead and give us your definition and then your criteria of what a superstar is.
We're also going to go into like this whole like idea of what I wanted to capture, which was really hard to do with stats. So basically, a superstar, I wanted it to do like 4 things. I wanted them to basically be a bus driver. I wanted it to show some way to show that they were actually playing like a big part of the game, that, you know, their team relied on a lot of their production, whether it's bad or good. They were just a part of the game. That could be turnovers, that could be assists, free throws, anything. That was one of the things I wanted to capture. I also wanted to capture if they have some sort of proof that they can, you know, contribute to a winning culture, meaning that when they do get into playoffs, they don't just fumble hard. They can at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals or something. They've shown that. Or Western Conference Finals. Not everyone can make it to the finals, you know. It's sometimes not your fault. I mean, finals teams are built by maybe the GM. It's not with the exception of a few guys. I'm going to go ahead and say that like you don't have to make it to the finals. Then I wanted to include some sort of indicator of MVP level talent. Now, it's really easy to just say, oh, let me just go ahead and pick who was the MVP of that year. But I didn't want something that like static and binary. So I went ahead and used another stat, the best stat I could find that can maybe measure this idea of MVP level talent. And then finally, I wanted to know, you know, some more recency, right? You do need to have some sort of context on what's currently going on in the league, right? Because we can look at these stats all we want, but we need to have like, what does everyone in the league currently think in a subjective matter? So it's like, you know, coaches seem to think that this player is good, players seem to think this player is good, and also some other vote of like, or measure of durability. So those are the 4 things I wanted to do. So with that, Sam, you can go ahead and go to the next thing. For the first thing, I wanted to, for the high all-around impact during the season, I chose the player impact estimate, and I chose the top 15% of players within like the last 3 seasons. So 16.0 was about that mark. And I'm saying you have to at least hit the player impact estimate above that percentage. Means for all the stats in your game, keep in mind, both teams have 50-50, 50%. So this player has to have on average 16% of those stats contribute to him in one of the last 3 seasons, and minutes per game greater than 15. So you have to average a good amount of minutes per game too. So then the next thing I wanted to do was also because I just wanted to proof of concept. You've made it to the conference finals or better before in the last one of the last 6 seasons. Some superstars don't really get the chance to make it that high up very often. You know, like if we were talking way back when, it's like maybe Damian Lillard, but I don't even think did Damian make it to a conference final? Probably
Yes.
not. Yeah, he did. Okay. So if we were falling back a little further, then Damian would be in this criteria. This is like a Dame kind of level of exception. That's why this is included. And then the third thing was the top 35 in NBA career PER of all time. So when I was looking for a stat that somehow like was a continuous variable that measured this, tried to capture this idea of MVP level talent, what I noticed is that a 30 plus PER is strongly predictive of MVPs over the last 9 years, where 8 of the 9 winners have met that mark, with James Harden hitting about 29.7. And, you know, I also wanted at the same time to show that you don't always have to win MVP every single year or be in the MVP consideration. You just need to show that you are capable of MVP level talent. Now, how much this can carry you, I didn't want to use an arbitrary amount of years, like 5 or 4 or 3 or something like that. I basically said, given how high your PER is, that gives you some leeway for down years, because superstars can have down years. But once you start getting below that 35 NBA career PER of time, you're going too low. And some notable players are like Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook. Those guys have had MVP caliber seasons, but have sort of faded out of that level. So that's how I wanted to measure that. And then finally, I wanted to do, you know, the voting. You have to include some voting just to get a perception of how people are feeling in the league at the time. And in order to do that, I wanted to include just at least one all second team NBA or better in the last 3 seasons. And the reason why I picked the PIE and the last 3 seasons of the all second team NBA is because of the new mandatory restrictions, right? I'm trying to also measure that they're also playing. And this happened 3 years ago. So that's why I picked that magic number 3. I'm justifying that because I just wanted to use it as a double dip, because you also have to be durable. So those are my requirements, and that's my full definition. That's why it's interesting on the players I end up finding.
What a novel.
Yep. Yeah.
But
I can.
All right.
My bad. Are you next or am I next?
I'm next.
Okay.
So my definition of what a superstar is a superstar is someone who leads their team to success while also accomplishing individual awards. So I didn't go super in depth, kind of like what Geigh did, but I do also have criteria. I have 4 criteria, and you must have hit all the requirements out of the last 5 seasons, because we are determining who are superstars right now. So you must have either won an NBA championship in the last 5 years, been a multi-time MVP finalist, or been a 4-time All-NBA in the last 5 years. Another one where the 4-time All-NBA can fit into this one as well. You must have won cumulatively 6 All-NBAs or All-Star appearances. So whether that's 3-3, 4-2, whichever, just 6 of them cumulatively. You must have played in at least 2/3 of your team's games over the span of the last 5 years. So if you miss an entire year, it's going to be kind of hard to hit that mark. And you must have won at least 50% of your games throughout the last 5 years while you've been playing as well. So then that should leave Payton.
Yep. I would say that my definition criteria, like Sam's, aren't as maybe in depth as Gauge's. It's just kind of a standard baseline that can, not necessarily be glossed over, but it's very easy to explain, I think, and understand. Go ahead and roll out my whole slide, Sam. So my definition is someone who is recognized as a top player in the league and generally make the playoffs every year, assuming they're healthy. So it kind of consists of different type of factors, but those three things will go into my criteria that are more expanded. And so I kind of want to explain my criteria a little bit. And I think we all decided to do the criteria portion a little different as far as like putting a kind of a baseline on where it starts. Because me and Sam, I think, did that similarly, where he said you have to hit all five, and I don't think necessarily you don't have to hit 3 out of 5. It really depends, because to me, the context is different. If you have, 2 first-team All-NBAs and multiple and All-Stars those both years, I don't think that disqualifies you if you're hurt for 2 of the seasons. We can go ahead and dig into more of my criteria here. So the first one is must have 2 or more major awards in 3 out of the 4 most recent seasons. So my baseline, I'll just go ahead and explain this right now, and I should have probably put this in my criteria, but all of my statistics, or I guess my criteria that have to do with production and statistics and anything else, how many games you're healthy for. We're all going off the last 4 seasons. I think the last 4 seasons for me is a good enough baseline where it's not so far away where, things have changed so much in the landscape of the NBA as far as coaching and player rosters and things like that. I think 4 years is a really good timeline for me, and I don't like 1 or 2 years because I don't think that's a big enough sample size. So I'm going to go ahead and say that about all my criteria as well. But as far as the 2 or major awards, that could be all NBA teams or MVPs. I would say I'd probably count an all-star if you're 3 out of the 4 years for a star. My second is you must be healthy for most of the season, the last 3 out of the 4 most recent seasons. So me and Sam were kind of talking about this a little bit, and he was like, most is very subjective. But I think for me, at this point in time, most in the NBA means you have to be eligible for major awards, right? Because we're talking about superstars here, and that is 61 games. Is that correct, Sam, or 62?
I think it's 64.
64? Okay, well, then there you go. I would say that for me is most of the season, because if you can't win major awards, you're already disqualified from 2 of these qualifications if you're not healthy enough to be able to be eligible the last 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. And then you must have made the playoffs every year, assuming there's no injuries. So, assuming no other players are hurt, you're not hurt for a majority of the season where you can't win awards, you should make the playoffs if you're a superstar, in my opinion. You can carry yourself, you can carry your team to a certain type of next level that the alphas that make the playoffs can do. But if you're hurt, I mean, I feel like that automatically disqualifies you from 2. But I don't know. We'll see. Minimal off-court issues, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think for me, minimal means you should not be getting suspended enough games where you can't win awards. It kind of goes with the same thing. 64 games. You should not miss more than 15 games and be a superstar. It can't happen. And the last one is at least 2 of either MVP, all NBA, or all defense. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory as well. But like I said, it's in the last 4 years, so you have a lot of time to do it. And then the last one is a 2-way player unless the offensive game is top 3 in the league. So in my opinion, and I'm just going to make this further criteria, the top 3 offenses or top 3 type of offenses in the league, or offensive games, I would say, are probably Luka, Jokic, Shea, or KD. I think one of those 4 have the sharpest production mixed in with how they play. But otherwise, you got to be 2-way. If you're not, then I think that's just not enough. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I had to do some extra explaining on those, but I feel like the minimum baseline should be 64 games, and you got to win some kind of major award. You don't have to do it, and for me, you don't have to do it every single year. You just need to do it one time. And you can make All-NBA 3rd team and be fine. So, and then elite leader, always alpha. Did I say the last one was my last one? I had a lot more than I thought.
You said the last one was your last 2.
Well, either way, I guess for always the alpha, I'm meaning you're always the first option, whether that's scoring, whether that's ball handling, usage rate, any of those things. You have to be the alpha. And then if you're an elite leader, that just means that it's kind of in the same vein where you're always the first option, but you are recognized, and we all know who those guys are in the league. You know, it always gets reported on or commentated on, or what, interviews that are about the player. You kind of know who the alpha is on each team, and so if you're that kind of guy, you're either the elite leader or you're kind of the soft spoken leader where you lead by example, like KD in my opinion, but he's the alpha on the team. And so you don't necessarily have to be the greatest leader if you're not vocal, is what I'm trying to say. If you're the alpha, you're still the first option, scoring option, putting up first player production. But you have to either be one of those two guys. You don't have to necessarily be the first option if you're not an elite leader, or if you're not an elite leader. But you got to have one of those two.
All right, so then the superstars that we all agree on, there are 5. We got Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, LeBron James, and Nikola Jokic. So then who did we disagree on? Well, Payton, you just finished off with your criteria. Let's go ahead and go with you. Who's the first person you want to talk about?
Yeah, so you already know Anthony Edwards is going to be up there. We already know he's the number 1 option on that team, and they've done a lot of winning in the past. And so I feel like with how much his team has changed and how young he is, being that he's constantly an all-star, and his teams always are in the playoffs, in the mix, battling. I feel like and how young he is as the leader of that team, I feel like he has to be up there. And I don't think he's necessarily a top 7 or 8 player in the league. He might be 9 or 10, but I think he's done enough in the league for how young he is, that I don't think it's necessarily fair to put him at a 9, 10 or a 11, 12, 13 position. I think he's earned that right as the best player on on a playoff team every single year.
Geigh?
So, Anthony, should I tell you why Anthony Edwards didn't make my list, or should I just go ahead and tell you? Okay,
do that.
So Anthony Edwards didn't make my list because he's en route, but he's just hasn't had enough years to show that he's been in the MVP race. That's it. Also, even when I was trying to measure how much he contributes to the game, he hasn't actually been, obviously it looks like he's taken that step up, but he has had a lot of help from, Cat. He has had a lot of help from Julius Randle, in terms of just handling the offense. We all know that he's the guy. He's the main guy.
Or did you have Julius Randle on your list?
We will talk about that later. But I'm saying
he's got help though.
But I'm saying the main idea is that Anthony Edwards, he's just not in the MVP conversation.
Yeah, he's not a top 3, 4 player.
That's it. But he has time, so it's he's not washed or anything. It's bro, you're in here playing against 30-year-olds, who's been dude, you'll be a superstar eventually.
Sam, what's your take?
With how some of the old that we have, some of these superstars, he's probably the next one in potentially, and if it's not next year, most likely the year after.
Even if you guys think he's not, he's still fringe. You know what I mean?
But calling him a superstar now is just skipping steps. He only got drafted in 2020. This is probably, I think, the youngest guy that we'll talk about in the superstar category.
Yeah.
So, yes, he's an elite scorer, but he did only shoot 45% from the field this last year, which, from an alpha or someone who you want to consider elite, that's not good.
How much did he shoot from 3-pointers? I'm just curious.
Yeah, what did he shoot from 3?
I think he was taking a lot more threes this year.
He was, yeah.
Half of his shots were 3-pointers this year.
And what did he shoot from 3?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but if you want to look it up,
it's gonna be
if half of his shots were 3-pointers, then that's a good 3-point percentage to shoot for.
But
overall,
yeah.
And I know that he's not handling the
ball.
He
shot 40% from 3 this year.
He's working on it.
So
sorry, go ahead.
And I know that he's not a primary ball handler. Normally it's Conley, or they even have Randle bring it up. They even had Cat last year bring it up every now and again. But his assist to turnover ratio is god awful.
What?
It's like,
He's a shooting guard.
Yeah, but like, as the alpha, aren't you supposed to be handling the ball?
Well, like you said, he's a great scorer. He's
three turnovers as a shooting guard's not good. You can say that,
that's actually
right?
probably average. As an alpha shooting guard. Do you remember how much James Harden used to get in his prime?
I mean, but he was also a point guard.
I mean, either way.
Yeah.
They're both handling the rock the same amount of time.
But I mean, if you just want to look at his just gameplay in itself, he still takes, and I mean, I know this is kind of young guy stuff, but he still takes highly contested shots. Now, he can make them. We've seen that.
%.
But he still takes those contested mid-rangers, and he still takes early shot clock pull-ups. What irks an NBA coach more than shooting before you even have a shot, right? There's not much things that would make a coach mad, unless if your goal is to run. I'm not asking you anything. I'm telling you. And that just ends up just killing momentum. But if we want to talk about his team success, yes, he's been to the conference finals the last 2 years, but they've been abysmal performances. Now, credit, he was injured this last year, but like against the Mavericks, where was he? The spotlight got shined off of him after destroying the Suns in the first round. And then I don't even remember who they played in the second round. I don't even remember. The Nuggets. He took care of the Nuggets, who was the favorites in the West, and then was just nowhere to be found against a much easier team than probably the two teams he faced before.
I don't think it's necessarily fair to say easier, because it could have been a worse matchup for them, and apparently it was. So I don't know. I mean, that kind of seems like a cop-out to me, because I don't think you have to be a better team to beat another team in the playoffs if you can out-scheme them and your system beats their system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the Pacers are a great example of that. Winning 5 playoff series when they probably had no business winning that many the last 2 years.
Yeah, that had a lot to do with shot making for me. Tyrese Haliburton's shot making was top 5, top 6 we've seen in the last few playoffs. I think just how many buzzer beaters he had. Anyways, we'll talk about.
Yeah, I really don't think anything's wrong with Anthony Edwards. I think he's on the right track. He's one of the scariest downhill players in the league. Yeah. He's working on.
You can't blame me for having him as a superstar. Is what you're
trying to figure out what's the best way to play. But like that's, I'm blaming you because I'm saying he's just not ready compared to like I mean, you saw we had to pick 8 guys, right? That's what
I saw the list. Yeah.
I mean, he's the next big thing, but it's just 5 years too early, or after 5 years.
Sorry, I don't know about 5.
No. After 5 years, it's too early.
Yeah. Sure. So, okay.
All right. So who's your next guy, P?
No, I'm gonna regret this. I really hope we don't play the Warriors next season, but
bro,
it's Steph Curry. And for me, if we're going, based on the prime of his career, or even like the 3 years closest to his prime, so we'd probably agree it's 14, 15, 16, maybe 17. But he's had injury issues, the past few years. He had some really bad moments these playoffs, and I think, honestly, if Jalen Green doesn't have such a bad playoff run, I think we win that series. I mean, Alperen Şengün missed a buzzer beater to beat them, and we could have won the next 2 and beat them. I feel like we very easily could have won that series, and Amen Thompson was locking up Steph Curry, and he just looked a step slow. And I'm not saying he didn't have good games last playoffs. I'm not saying that at all. But because he does meet a couple of my requirements as far as like being an all-NBA player the last 4 years. Like, and they know how to win series, but they haven't won enough besides that championship that convinces me that Curry's on the level of a Shea, or he would be very neck and neck with Anthony Edwards, and I guess I just chose Anthony Edwards, but Yeah, he just looks an extra step slow. I mean, even in regular season games, and then factor that with the injuries he's had the last few years. I would say right now, and this might be just putting a lot of stock in the last couple years, but I would say right now, I just don't think he is a top 5, 6 player in the league. I think all the guys we agreed on, that's 5 guys, and then you got to pick your last guy. So somebody had to make the cut, and those are my reasons why.
So you said he's like, would you say he's declining?
Yeah,
He's trying to
definitely.
put words in your mouth, Peyton, because he's
No,
not.
I
No,
definitely,
he just agreed to it.
Nah,
First
he's
of all,
trying- he's
no,
trying to
I
put your
definitely
mouth.
say. So I'm willing to bet any amount of money that next year he is not as good as he was this last year or the last 2 years, and I bet you he
we'll
might
talk
get
about-
hurt. And I bet
we'll
you they
talk
don't
about
make the
that after
playoffs
the
either.
podcast.
Yeah, I bet you they don't make the playoffs either because the West is getting crazy.
I mean, they need a center too. Yeah,
But the funny
Like,
thing
like
is
Jimmy Butler getting older, that's not going to help them advance any further than they did this year in the second round, and teams are getting better. Because in the second round,
Well, I mean, they
obviously,
could-
the
they could've made
Rockets
it
should
to
have
the
won that
conference finals.
series. They should have won that series, in my opinion. I don't know, but also I'm biased on this one, so I'll admit that.
So
I
you
hate this
think
guy.
you think he's declining?
Well, you have to define what you mean declining as. Like, he's
is he
not
just
getting any
declining?
better. If that's what are you saying he's getting better?
I'm not saying he's getting better, but I'm
No,
saying that
I'm not saying, but I'm also not saying he's falling off a cliff. But he is. He's not going. He's not doing this. But he's definitely like veering. Whereas
but he's still way up here. You know,
he's not top. He's not a top 5 player like he was for 3-4 years in a row in the mid 20.
I mean, he hasn't been that top 5 player since maybe 2022.
And yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But
Like
he's
that was the
still
last
up there.
time.
Like, he had better
Not
shooting
top
splits
5
than Anthony Edwards this last year, and he was in top 10.
Okay, Anthony Edwards, I can accept if he's over him because that's like one spot for me. But he's not better than Jokic. He's not better than a Giannis.
Nope.
Well,
he's
you
not
don't have
better
to
than
bring
a
up the 5 that
Luka.
we all agreed on.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So he had to barely not make the cut for me, you know?
Yeah. And if you took Steph off the Warriors, the question is not, are they a lottery team? It's what odds do they have to getting the first overall pick? And I feel like that's a big factor too.
Yeah,
Like,
he's an
team,
he's an MVP type of player when he's healthy. Yeah.
And he has been.
He has been. How many games has he played in the last 3 years? He's been healthy for all those games?
I'll look it up since you're asking the question.
I think he's been pretty healthy besides maybe the year they got like the...
Let's see, 70, 74, the 56, 64, 63.
Yeah, he's been okay.
Yeah, he's been pretty decent.
So, the injuries.
Maybe that 5 games just, I don't know.
And I don't think anyone's crazy for trying to build a team around
games.
Steph Curry either. Like, there are some players you're just like, why are you still trying to build a team around this guy? Like, I think like Joel Embiid is getting pretty close.
Yeah, we'll talk about him later. I don't think necessarily the Warriors are building around Steph Curry because, and he is still really good. Like I said, he's still a top 10 player, but in some nights he is like the best player on the court. But I would say just with the guys I have in front of him, it's not that I don't think Curry is a really good player. I mean, he just beat my team in the playoffs. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say I think the other guys I would be more scared to play in the playoffs in the last 2 or 3 years than Steph Curry. But other than those 5 or 6 guys, I mean, he's up there. But I would much rather play him versus all the guys we agree on.
I know that none of us really took popularity into effect with our superstars or even our stars.
Yeah.
But in 2024, Steph Curry was still 3rd in jersey sales behind LeBron James and Jayson Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, he's popular for sure. Yeah. But that doesn't meet any of our definitions. So
no, but I just,
but it is
kind
interesting.
Big market. Even though he's declining, he's still.
Well, and I'm not gonna lie to you. You know, we all know he changed the game of basketball in the NBA. You know, and I give him huge props for that. He's like Tom Brady for me as a Falcons and Rockets fan. I always hate him for what he did to my team, but I can always respect him for how much impact he had on the game and how good he was in his prime. To be able to witness that kind of volume shooting on good efficiency is something that you're not going to see for probably another, I don't know, how the league's going, you might see it in 20 years. No, I don't know. Maybe not like
when they bring
Curry.
the 4-point line.
Yeah, something
I think
crazy
you'll
like
probably
that.
see something like Curry in the next.
You'll see, you'll see something. You don't know if they're gonna make the all-time 3-point record, though. You know what I mean, type of thing. But
Maybe.
Either way, we can move on.
Yep. All right, so now we'll go into mine. Let me come over here. So I only have one guy that I have to bring up, and that is Kevin Wayne Durant.
God.
So, so you both had him as a
Wayne Durant.
superstar,
Yeah.
and this one was kind of a tough one for me, considering that I still had an open spot, but he just didn't.
That's
he
so
just
whack. You
just
had an
didn't
open
meet it.
spot, and you could have just not had this argument.
I
Sorry.
mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
so go against my qualifications and let him in, and not have any integrity, or keep my integrity and make a case on why he doesn't qualify. So I feel like I would prefer to have some integrity, and it sparks a conversation here. So he didn't meet my first qualification, where he has not been an All-NBA 4 of the last 5 years, has not been a multi-time MVP finalist, not even been up for an MVP in the last 5 years, and he has not won a championship. So, he hasn't been an MVP finalist. He hasn't been a finalist since 2014. Now he's elite, yes, and we can say injuries can derail a lot of that stuff too. But I mean that goes hand in hand too. Like, what the best ability is availability, and Kevin Durant has been better these last 3-ish years. I basically ever since the Achilles, for the most part, has been available. But could you really say that Kevin Durant was consistently the best player on the Suns?
Yes.
Understand?
Yeah.
I can confidently say that.
You
I can
confidently
say that. I can say that you would rather double team KD first than Booker, and that's how you
100%.
get Booker some good shots, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, KD had the scoring numbers for sure, but Booker led his team in usage and offensive load, and played slightly better defense.
I think
But
they just
that's
denied
subjective.
KD because KD's the
That is
And
very objective.
I don't want to
That's
say
very
you
subjective.
said Booker is
Yeah.
a better defender, or is that what you said? Or
I
Yeah, that's
said,
what he said, which is very subjective.
yeah, but it's very subjective.
I don't agree.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't agree with that either.
Yeah, that's why I don't like bringing up subjectivity, objectivity. Let's see. Well, I guess, and here we go. Me bringing up subjectivity. He no longer elevates players, his teammates around him. Let me ask you a question.
When has he done that?
When has he? Exactly.
I mean, that's not what he's known for.
Yeah.
Like, he's just a all-time elite scorer.
But
Best
He's
of
an
his
alpha.
generation. Yeah.
He's just an alpha scorer. He's like Anthony Edwards, but realized, and Dwayne Wade-ish. But
if he's getting all the double teams like you guys just said, why didn't James Harden have the best season of his career? Or Kyrie Irving, Devin Booker?
Well, Kyrie Irving was a whole thing.
Yeah.
We don't have to go into that. That had nothing to do with KD
No.
at all.
Yeah.
But as far as Harden, I mean, he had his injury issues with Brooklyn too, and you could debate he was just as good hit with Brooklyn as he was when he was healthy with the Rockets. The last year he was with the Rockets. Like, if you would look it up, I'm sure he maybe didn't score as much points, but I'm guessing he had just as many assists and was just as efficient. Because I remember that first year when he got traded, he looked just as good, and that's when people were like, "Oh, he took the fat suit off," But he had 25 points, 11 assists. So he had the most assists he's ever had since the 2016 season when he was the full-time point guard. I think that by itself, I mean, where do you think he's getting those extra assists from?
Who are you talking about?
James Harden.
James Harden. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that was his highest assists since then. Yeah. He hasn't had another assist season like that unless he played with Kevin Durant.
Yeah. And the reason for that was because, I mean, James Harden knew that KD was
He could
like
just throw him a pass in the corner, Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, he only played 35 games that year, so it's kind of hard to get a track on that,
Yeah, what would it have been if they played?
Yeah,
80
exactly.
games, 70.
Yeah. with the Warriors, they won the championship. So I know he didn't necessarily elevate them because we already knew the Warriors dynasty was a thing before that. But he made it. But the thing that people always said is KD made the Warriors into a team that is really hard to beat, but you can beat the Warriors into a team that is unbeatable at a certain point. Until things kind of sour and I think the locker room issues happen. But I don't think he's a guy that's going to elevate players. I think he's a guy that's going to elevate your ceiling automatically. And we really haven't seen him try to be a mentor to good young players. I mean, who are the good young players that he's had a chance to really mentor that either were lottery picks or showed some real promise? I mean, you got Devin Booker. Devin Booker was already good before KD got there, so that doesn't really count. They traded Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, so he didn't get a chance to mentor them, who played the same position. Oklahoma City, he was the young guy. With the Warriors, they won the championship. With the Nets, they had a bunch of veterans the whole time. So, who did he really have a chance to elevate that were already not realized at that point?
He could still elevate, the top players too.
So I guess I want to go back to what is your issue with Kevin Durant? What is it again?
What is my issue?
Yeah, what was it again?
He's one of the most elite scorers we have ever seen.
Yes. And he's still able to cook to this day.
And he's still able to cook, yes. But where is the playoff success?
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault.
It's not his fault, yeah.
Okay. He played with, I believe it was James Harden.
Yeah, they
or Kyrie, one of the two.
We already know what happened with that team, and it wasn't Durant's fault.
Well, it was his shoe size.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because he wants to play. He wants to play a size and a half too big.
And mind you, he was 32, 36.
That was in 2021.
And when has KD never showed up? Has he had a time where he hasn't showed up in the playoffs?
Oh, let me get there, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know.
So in 2022,
or winning,
sells his team. I don't think he's really oversold his team.
No, he has good. He has his season averages in the playoffs.
Yeah,
he plays decent in the playoffs. It's not that he falls off a cliff.
Yeah,
like some people.
Who you're implying there?
He's just like some people.
We'll find out later.
No,
just some people.
All right, but let me. Now that you got me on this. Let me pull up his series stats for you.
I really don't think KD sells like that.
He doesn't.
I don't remember. Yeah.
So in 2022, they got swept.
Yep.
By
we're not saying they didn't. We're not saying playoff team wise they didn't get cooked, but it's not KD's fault.
Yeah, they got swept by I believe Boston in the first round, and then he gets traded. What were you gonna say?
I mean, it's Boston, and who did they have on that team by then?
What? Yeah, and what year are you talking about?
It was still KD and Kyrie.
They didn't get swept.
22. They did get swept.
Oh, in 22. Sorry, I was looking at 21.
It was just Kyrie and KD and Clint, or not Clint? Why would we say Claxton?
Claxton,
right? Was Claxton on that team? That was their center, right?
Yeah.
And then they had some random. Gosh, who was their next guy? I don't remember. 3-point shooter who was good for a bit, and he just
Harris.
Joe Ingles?
Joe Harris.
Harris, yeah.
I think that was the next guy, and we were all hyped about Joe Harris, but I mean, KD already knew. The writing was on the wall. He was not going to stay in there. He can't win with those cats.
Yeah. And then, so then after not winning a series, he gets traded to the Suns. Not only not winning a series, not even winning a game in the first round. He gets traded to the Suns. Beats a Kawhi-less Clippers, and then loses to the Nuggets in 6.
Where did the Nuggets go that year?
They did win the championship, yes. But what about last year?
You had
I guess 2 years ago. 2 years ago, what did they do to the young Timberwolves where the Phoenix Suns were favored as a 6th seed?
I feel like
not even win a game.
I feel like you're digging into the wins too much and not his production. Because if
you're a superstar, you don't get swept, especially in the first round.
Superstars
against a team that you are already better than.
This is what my qualifier would be if you were the alpha, but you didn't have a competent enough team. Because you can talk about, okay, well they got swept, or You're talking about the Denver series or the Boston series?
The Wolves series now.
Oh,
2 years
so
ago. Yeah, there's
you
no
look at that
there's no
series.
excuse for that.
No, well, that's fine. But if you look at that series, I mean, that really had nothing to do with him. I mean, he had 30 twice and 25 in the third game. I mean, that's pretty much 30. Now, yeah, he didn't even take enough shots, in my opinion.
Because they were getting blown out.
Well, the last game they didn't get blown out. They only lost by 6. But like I said, we all knew already before this year how bad really that Suns team was. I mean, that Suns team was not good. But what my point is that you look at every series before that, and yeah, I'll say that 18-point game in Game 2 against Minnesota was weird. But if you look at every other game before now, I mean, he had a weird 16 game against Boston in the third game. And that might have been, I don't know if they pulled him early or what, but every other game he has had 23, 25, 27, 31, 31, 48, 49, 42, 32, multiple 30s and 40s in the playoffs. And so I feel like if you're able to do that, I don't really know how much more you can ask for.
You can't. I'm looking at you see his playoff series average? Okay, sure. You're this is like relative, like this is all career wise, and you're trying to speak more relative. But playoff averages 29.3 points, 7.8 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.0 steals, 1.2 blocks. What else do you want from the man? Like he's just
Win.
But we know the context. He can't win. Like
well, and let's not act like he can't. He can get out of the first round. I don't. In the last 6 years, is that what you're? Because I'm pretty sure they won.
Last 5 years, he's won 2 series. Hurt Boston, hurt Clippers. Other than that, he
don't
loses.
say hurt. Like teams don't play hurt teams all the.
I mean, we could say it for everyone else too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's not even worth saying.
Listen to the mic. But so I guess just my last point is he hasn't had a signature playoff moment in the last 4 years, with the exception of Anthony Edwards getting in his face and him laughing because he was getting dogged. You remember that clip?
Yeah, I don't know what any of this has to do. Moment? I don't know what any of this has to do. No, I don't remember.
He hasn't had a signature playoff. You have.
What does that have to do with your criteria, though?
No, it's a supplemental point to the criteria because he hasn't won anything. He hasn't had all NBAs. He hasn't been an MVP finalist. Like the easiest thing to do for him, because he can't get the personal accolades, even though he's so freaking good, is win a championship.
Well,
but
he can't even
get close
personal
to
accolades. He made second team. What was it? Not last year.
But yeah, he's gone second team.
Like he can win personal accolades. Sure, he doesn't get MVP. He's not a top 3-4 player anymore. I don't think any of us expect him to be that at 36.
He's been all NBA twice, just twice.
All NBA
in the last 5 years.
In the last 5 years, but that's pretty good.
Yeah,
the last 5.
That means my criteria because he's made 2 All-Star games and an NBA second team in the last 2 years. Now, granted, he missed the other 2 years, but it's because he was hurt. And so, yeah, like that would go against my criteria as well. But the other 2 years, like I said, it's not like yours where it has to hit every single year. But if he was an all-star 2 of the last 4 years, an all-NBA team, and he meets – because if you want to go back to your original point, and I think this is kind of my biggest point with KD, and at least this is the strongly I feel about it. Every team he's been on, I don't care if it was the Warriors, the Nets, the Thunder, he was not always the elite leader that you want out of a guy, but he was always the alpha player. He's always been the best player on every single team he's ever played on. And he's played with a lot of good players. We all know that. He's played with probably 5, 6, 7 Hall of Famers by now. But I think every team he's been on, because he hasn't played with LeBron or a better version of a player now, and he still won't be able to do that on the Rockets unless one of those 2 other guys make a jump, which they're not going to probably be better than KD. He's never going to have the opportunity to play with a guy as good as him, as productive as him. I think Curry was probably the closest you had. But I think Curry a lot of the time deferred to KD because he wanted KD to kind of fit in. And he did fit in. I mean, they won championships. But
Should have been 3.
so yeah, and then
Damn
he got
Achilles.
hurt, right? So
Damn Achilles.
yeah, and those Raptors, man. But anyways, let's go on to Gage's defense.
All right, Gage. Who's the first one you want to talk about?
Whoever pops up.
Whoever.
Okay. All right. So Anthony Davis. So again, if we're talking about like the best players in the league right now, I don't know if I can say that Anthony Davis is the like top best player in the league just because he's getting older. But my requirement is that my requirement about have shown MVP level talent is that I'm going to credit you for having monstrous peak. And you're allowed a certain level of fall off before you have to leave the club of MVP level caliber talent. You have to have shown it at one point. Some people who have fall off, like I mentioned, some notable names like Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillard, according to my metric. So with Anthony Davis, he's hasn't shown that crazy fall off, but he hasn't shown the crazy fall off, and he's also been all second team NBA in the last 3 years. He's still a big part of whatever team he's been playing, like he plays for, even with the Mavs, even when he got hurt, sure. But I mean, he showed a stint that he can still be the guy. I mean, the Mavs certainly believe that he can still be the guy. I mean, the Lakers did too. He's able to make it to the conference finals. He doesn't, it's not, you can say that his playoff resume isn't as spotless as Durant's. I'm saying as Durant's, as though Durant, I've told you, I don't see him sell games. I've seen Anthony Davis sell games, but I'm trying to say that they can still make it to the conference finals. A lot of superstars don't have that privilege of saying, I've never sold a game in the playoffs before, right? We've seen superstars sell, so he fits the criteria there. That's just basically it.
For me, yeah, he just misses on a couple criteria. He does have the major award criteria, but I think for me, and it's unfortunately it's not necessarily his fault. It's just part of my criteria as a whole. But on the teams with LeBron James, I don't think he's the elite leader like LeBron James, and I don't think he's the elite alpha like LeBron James. I don't think he has more games than LeBron does being the alpha of that winning team when they are winning. And it's not necessarily his fault because he's on the same team as LeBron, but when he's won a championship, the bubble ring, and he's been good with the Lakers, that's all fine and all that. But the teams that I saw him be the best player on, and I think we could debate is his prime, he made the playoffs, what was it, one time, and then they got swept. Now, granted, it was the Warriors.
No, they
Golden
won
State Warriors, and
yeah,
they won one against the Golden State Warriors. Right?
Okay, so they won one.
Yeah.
They might have won the first game or something.
And he also won a series with the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Is that what you were talking about?
With Baby Boogie and Drew. Right?
Who did they beat in the playoffs?
The Blazers.
Yeah.
They beat the Blazers in the first round?
Yeah.
That should tell you so much why I didn't think that series mattered, because they probably got smashed in the second round.
Yeah.
They did.
Because I don't even remember that.
But this Pelicans team wasn't serious.
Yeah, I mean, either way, that was probably so long ago. I was just using the Pelicans as a point. Whereas, like, now, like, you could have maybe made sort of a point back then. But, like, now, I don't think any of us had him being higher than LeBron. And I don't think if we made top 5 lists, we would have him higher than LeBron. And which is crazy because of LeBron's age. But, and he just misses a lot of games, man. I mean, he doesn't miss as many games as I think people would think.
No,
now,
he's fixed it.
But, fixed is 50 games.
51 games?
This was because the Mavs shoved them in at the last. They've shoved them in.
He had a good 2034 or 2024 season. I'll give him that. But then 54 and 40 and 36. I know I was going off the last 4 years, but just even going off those 4 years, you got 2 50s and a 40. And you're missing my criteria by at least 10 games. And so, with all those things considered, I guess, like, I think he's a really good player as well. Like, he would have been up there with Anthony Davis and Steph Curry too. He would have been in that mix.
Yeah. And Payton just brought up a good point that I would like to touch up on. Anthony Davis is known more for his injuries and inconsistencies than his dominance.
I mean, to the casual fan, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I
I
mean,
would,
I mean, his dominance is good, yes, but I mean,
It's
51
enough.
games,
It's enough to get an
76
award.
games, 56 games, 40 games, 36 games.
But no,
It's
yeah,
not enough to get an award.
yeah. But like I'm saying, even like the last. Okay, say the last 3 seasons.
51, 76, 56.
Okay, 76.
Only one season. He's played. So 64 games is the number of games that you have to play in order to get an award.
You know what's tough about that? The fact that you bring up 51 games. Here's the thing. I remember the season 3 years ago when he was actually, for those first games that he was healthy, he was actually in an MVP race. He was actually like considered to be an MVP level like player, and then he got hurt. So I see your point here, but I'm also saying that, like, yeah, I guess I'm just not weighing in injuries as much because I say, oh, you have some leeway to at least have one of those 3 seasons actually be a healthy season. You don't pull off 3 in a row, like I'm trying to say. But he was actually MVP level in the beginning of that season. I remember it.
Which season?
The season, it was I think it was the one that before the 76. He started off that. Yeah, he started off that season pretty wild.
But you also said something earlier about how he was MVP level. You're not talking about the 2017 to 2018 season, are you? Like with one of your metrics that you said?
I'm talking. Well, let's see. I got to check which.
This was a few minutes ago.
Which one of those years he did? Well, I didn't see that. I didn't have his. Let me think. No, he had MVP.
He was a finalist.
He had MVP caliber.
He was a finalist. Season. Okay, so my biggest question is, why is a season that happened 8 years ago relevant to why we are determining stars and superstars?
Because he's able to keep that. He's able to keep a similar consistency. He doesn't fall off. He's not Derrick Rose, dude. Like the thing is,
when was the last time he had 28 points?
That. Yeah, we haven't seen that same.
The only other time that he finished an MVP, like he finished 6th, and that was the year that they won the championship. Yes, he averaged 26 points. Since then, he's averaged 21, 23, 25, 24, 24.
What about blocks?
Like he has not been.
What about blocks? Rebounds? Bro's a walking double-double.
I mean, I would hope so. You're 7 feet guarding the paint.
Well,
how many center when you don't want to play center?
Think about this, Geigh. In 2017, 2018, that's the last time he had 2.4 blocks. Every season since then, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, he's had less blocks. So he's not in his prime anymore. No, that's what I was saying. Like he used to average like 3 blocks a game for a stretch of like 3 years.
Yeah, he's not. I'm not saying he's in his prime.
Yeah,
that's the point.
I feel like that's the case that you're trying to say because you're saying the productivity hasn't gone down, but it has.
No. But like to a level where you consider it like fall off. Like what I said, it was like you reach a certain level of just like MVP caliber talent that you're like actually one of the best in the league. But you're
saying the same thing about AD that I said about Curry, basically.
And then you have time to go. You have time to burn down, right? Now,
but he's been burning.
He's been burning. But the metric, he's still top 35 PER of all time, right? Most players do go down. Most players do kind of curve down. They can't keep up that level of production anymore.
It's a good thing PER favors bigs.
Yeah, it favors bigs. That's right. But that's only one of my criteria. You see? That's only one of them. We can't act like he didn't get second team All NBA like last year.
That's 1 year.
How many times? How many players actually get that? That's just 1 year.
I don't know. Imagine
if he was healthy. Did it. Geigh, if he played consistently 60+ games, you probably have me. I'm probably there with you, but he doesn't play enough. Even with the burning, because I was with you with Steph Curry. You and I were there. Payton was the minority there. But if he consistently
played, the same criteria.
What?
This is the same criteria that you used for Steph Curry.
It's
So
the
that's
same.
why
Yeah.
you can't. So that's why. No, I'm talking about Sam. So that's why he can't be with you on this one because if he's against Curry, he's against AD.
Exactly.
Let's move on to the next guy. Who you got here? JT.
MVP. That's it. Like these guys
What
missed the
about
mark.
all the winning he
They
does, like
have
the
the winning.
championship?
They have the championship. He has everything.
You don't care
But-
about that?
I mean, Team USA didn't care about that. Like that's what I'm saying. He's never got a
Team
first
USA.
place. He's never actually MVP. We talked about this. MVP caliber talent. We say, oh, he's been like, top 3, top 4 MVP votes of all time. Well, how many times did he actually get a first place vote? Never. He's never gotten a first place vote. He's never a serious candidate. You're never putting money for Tatum to actually win MVP
in an era of Jokic.
Exactly. And Jokic is a superstar.
Wait, so you're telling me he's never got one single vote?
One single first place vote. One single first place vote.
First place.
He's never gotten it. No one actually thinks he's actually going to be MVP. Because you're going to. But here's the thing.
True.
It is true. Shai got an MVP, right? Shai is capable of beating Jokic, so it is possible. Like that's the thing. What's up with Tatum, right?
To be honest, one of my favorite things about Tatum, not only has he won a championship as debatably the best player on the team, but one of my criteria is, I don't think he's necessarily an elite leader, but I think we can say that, or at least I can say that, whether he's better than JB or not, he is the alpha on the team, and I think everybody that watches the NBA seriously knows that.
And I agree. I agree.
But on top of that, one of my also favorite things, and it's a little bit harder this year because obviously we know he's not going to play a lot this year, but I'm not going to write a guy off for his whole career just because he has one tear recently that happened less than 3 months ago. When you look at how many games he's played his whole career, 80, 79, 66, 64, 76, 74, 74, 72. He always plays 70 games. And I don't need a guy, and for all we know, some of those are resting, maybe all of them for certain seasons. And so for how available he is as the first option, the alpha on the team, and how much winning they've done, that's enough criteria for me to put him up there. And also 3 back-to-back, 4 back-to-back NBA first team All NBAs. So it's enough for me. That's all I need.
Half of that is because he's durable. You know how many guys
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, stability is availability.
He's available, right? He's available,
right? Yeah.
But when it comes to your guys you're healthy. He has no excuse to actually be. He has no excuse to be MVP. Like, why hasn't he made that jump?
He doesn't need to make MVP to be a superstar. He doesn't need to be an MVP.
I'm saying he needs to be MVP caliber. That's my argument. I'm just saying, like, I don't see Tatum as an actual MVP candidate. I've never saw him as an MVP.
He hasn't been an MVP candidate in the last 5 years either.
I've seen him at before, and he's been able to cruise. I just say it's not easy to do that every year. It's like maybe you rattle off 1 good year, 2 good years, and then you're MVP. You're not.
I don't
not
think
everyone
it's
has
easy to be
Jokic.
4-time All First NBA, first team All NBA. I don't think that's easy to do. No matter who you are,
the MVPs have done it. If the MVPs have done it,
he doesn't have to be an MVP.
He's a step behind. Jokic has done it.
Giannis so your cutoff is basically 3 or 4. You have 3 or 4 superstars.
What? No, I have 8.
No, I know you have 8 on the list, but what I'm asking you is, if you could cut the list down, then why didn't you? Because what you're basically saying is that to be a superstar, you have to be an MVP voting.
At one point, you have to make the jump.
So you have to be Luka, Giannis, Jokic,
Shai,
and that's it.
Luka, Giannis,
I already said Luka, Jokic,
Doncic. But that's the thing. I didn't want to disclude.
You already said Luka.
Yeah. Okay. So I had.
So there's 4 guys.
Jokic, Giannis, Luka, AD, Cade, Shai.
So you had
LeBron.
80. Yeah, the 80 one is what gets me.
Because I wanted them all to like. Here's the thing. I don't even make it a requirement for you to win MVP. I just say you have to actually be up there. Like that's the thing. That's why I didn't use MVP. Just all right, MVP, you got it. It's binary. No, I wanted a measurement that got as close to measuring who is going to be MVP as possible. That's it. And Tatum Tatum didn't hit that mark. Tatum has never hit that mark.
He's hit fourth twice, sixth twice, but
what's the difference between him and Shy? You know, Shy made the jump, right?
Why
are we talking? I mean, he made the jump, but he wasn't all NBA the last 4 years.
Luka,
okay. What about Luka? We all have him as a superstar. We're not disagreeing on Jokic and Luka and Giannis being our top 3 basically in the last recent years. But Shea hasn't done enough. I mean, I guess if you're counting these playoffs, then you can make a case, yeah.
And yeah,
and he is a superstar. Like I don't think any of us are disagreeing on that. But if he's got 3 team All-NBAs in a row and Tatum has 4 and they will have 1 chip each, and Tatum probably has played more games, then I don't know why that's unfair.
Because I need to see him dominate the league. That's it. That's just it.
Dominate the league.
Just dominate the league. You can be first team all
NBA. Been to the conference finals 3 times and was a game away.
That's the Celtics dominating the league. That's the Celtics.
He's on the Celtics.
And he's the best player on the team.
He's on the Celtics.
But arguably, debatably, he wasn't even the best team on Team USA.
Everybody knew that. Everybody knew that.
He also didn't get a practice with the team for half the practice session.
Best season, and he still sits behind Cade. He still sits behind LeBron. He still sits behind AD.
All those guys were fresh. They were fresh.
They all 36-year-old KD is fresh.
Why would they start?
Because they lost in the first round. They had an extra month and a half off.
Why would they start a guy that's 26 when they know LeBron and KD don't have much long left?
Because he had the best season of his career, right? How good was his season? How good is Jayson Tatum?
It was pretty good, but I think you're comparing NBA politics to Olympic politics, and I don't think it works like that.
His stats argued that he was.
What does it matter about stats? You already know the game's different in the Olympics.
He couldn't.
Dude, you have 8 less minutes. You can't ease into this. LeBron has even said this. You can't ease into games like you do in an NBA game. You got to go. That's why Luka. That's why Giannis. That's why Jokic. They're great. They don't have to microwave up. They're already hot. They start the game going. How often do we see Jokic go like 8 points in the first 4 minutes, 3 minutes?
I just think the game is so different that it's not even comparable. You can't compare who starts and who does what in the Olympics with completely different rules and flow and all that, bro. Like, I don't think it's even worth comparing.
I just don't see if Tatum is that good. I don't understand how you can be above Anthony Davis in terms of skill level, or above Anthony Davis and KD, and still say, oh, well, you're younger, you're faster, but we're still going to put KD into clutch moments. So KD is still going to double your minutes. That makes no sense to me.
It makes sense to me because I think with the Olympics, it's a lot more about the mental game versus the athletic fast game. Like I was kind of just saying about how the NBA style is a lot different. I think the mentals matter and the IQ matters a lot more in the Olympics because the little things, the little details matter a lot more. But I don't see why we can vouch why you can defend KD for having the same production he's had the last 3-4 years or whatever time frame you're going off of, but then say, oh, well, JT should have started over KD. I feel like that's kind of backwards. Like you can't be on both sides of the fence, but even if you could, I don't even think it's worth comparing the Olympics and the NBA because they're 2 different types of games with different coaches, different flows, different rules, all that. So it's not even worth comparing.
It all comes down to MVP level caliber talent. That's it. You guys, if you guys don't think that's a requirement for a superstar, that's fine.
He is. I think I think he has seasons where he plays like that. That's why he's made 4-team All-NBA first teams. I think if you're All-NBA first team, or maybe one of the top guys on second team, that's MVP caliber. I think top 5 for me is MVP caliber. If you're a top 5 player in the league, I know voting goes top 3, but or top 4, I think it is maybe. I don't know, it might be top 3, but either way, if you're a top 5 player in the league and you recognize it as it because they have actual rankings based on where guys were at for MVP voting every year. And they do that for a reason. That's not for no reason. So,
and like I said earlier, like availability is the best ability, but he's also consistently productive when he plays too. And you can even say he's like borderline some of the best consistency that we can see from a top level guy like Anthony Davis. You see wishy-washy. I mean, even Luka some nights like wishy-washy. But Tatum, you kind of know what you expect almost every night.
yeah, you've pretty much gotten, in my criteria, the last 4 seasons, you've got an automatic 27 points per game per night. You're not going to have the variance.
His prime is just not like it's just not that great. His prime is he's great, like he's great. Don't get me wrong, but he's not 2019 Kawhi Leonard great.
And you're saying because of Pi?
No, I'm he exceeds Pi. He already got that. He's a bus driver. He's a bus driver. Hey, my camera's going out of sync. But I'm saying that he's not 2019 Kawhi, like leading his team past. He's not doing all that. He's not shy.
So I also did look, and I think you'd agree, but I don't see what you're meaning by he's the bus driver, but he doesn't lead his team. Like, what does that mean? I'm confused because
I'm saying the bus driver means he's responsible for his team's, like he's responsible for his team's, like he has a high contribution to what happens in the game. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't sit back and just like spot up three.
Exactly.
He's not that guy.
And they won a championship doing that.
I have numbers to show that. Yeah, he won a championship doing that. But his team all around, they all had pretty high pies. They were all pretty damn elite.
Which is fine because they should. I mean, how many wins did they have that season?
It was a great team. He won. Yeah, he won. But Shai did the same thing, right? Shai is a perfect example because
we all have Shai as a superstar. Yeah. But so why is JT not a superstar? Why are you comparing the two?
Because Shai's MVP. He's an MVP level caliber talent.
And Tatum was too.
Tatum
MVP
was not
caliber talent.
He was not.
Not that year, but he's had years like that. He's had a year like that.
He's not had a year like that. He's never gotten a first place vote. He's never actually been seriously considered over Jokic, Giannis.
But what do you mean?
Luka, any of these guys?
But he's been consistently up there.
So he hasn't been up there for a first place vote. But if you ask a person, just a casual person or someone that's into the NBA, if you ask someone, you say, Is Tatum an MVP caliber type of player? You think more people would say no versus yes just because he didn't get a first place vote?
I'm saying if you don't live in Boston, you might not even know who Jayson Tatum is. Now, as anyone who watches the NBA, because I'm saying household names, right? Like Tatum is not a household name.
Yeah, sorry, Tatum is 26.
Tatum is. He literally was in top 3 in jersey sales. Last year
by market, right? By market, but
he's also not in his 30s like LeBron or Giannis or Curry.
I'm just saying, would you ever bet money that Tatum is going to win MVP? Would you? I would not.
In an era of Jokic, no.
Exactly. I feel like Shai, I can.
I can with Shai. Yeah, he shouldn't have, but
that's been that's been the only guy that's rivaled him besides Joel that one year, and then Joel's faded off.
Yeah, Joel, and then Luka for a bit until Luka started selling. But Luka for a bit too, even Giannis, and then I get it.
But PER it just heavily rewards bigs, and Jayson Tatum is
heavily predictive of the MVP, which I've shown. It's heavily predictive. If you were to go one stat that's the most predictive of MVP, it's the PER.
And why does he have a lower PER? Can I tell you?
Tell me.
Because he shoots tougher shots, but he has to create shots for himself. And he also draws top defenders every night.
I am just looking for a score that measures who is MVP. If you were to plug this into a model, ask, do you think Tatum had a chance at getting any votes? This model says no. But we can go ahead and move on. I'm just saying MVP
I think
level.
We should move on. Yeah.
Yeah. But okay. Let's see. All right, Geigh, since we were on you, go ahead and
all right.
Yep. Go to you can do your stars definition.
Okay, so my definition for stars is pretty easy. Well, easier said than done, I guess, but like a player who has shown that they're either a two-way or high level, or high level specialty, or has playoffs or team leading proof. So like you either have to be elite two-way player, show that you're elite in one dimension, or you had to show that you're like, top 2 player on a successful playoff team. That's basically it. So you could probably go through those. It's like you have to be relevant. So those are exactly, like they're not exactly like pure score like definitions. I'm not being completely rigorous on this. I'm being pretty laid back here because like there's so
Which is the exact opposite of what you just did in
it's
Superstar.
exact opposite. But I was extremely rigorous and I told you exactly why I chose these numbers, everything. This one I'm just saying there's so many ways to just do this that I'm going to leave it very clear to say two-way or high-level specialty and playoff for team leading proof. Got to be a clear top 2 guy on a playoff team, and you have to be able to lead a playoff series. That's it. And by this argument, this was seen like, this year, you could argue, actually, I won't even argue it. Let's say TJ McConnell played the same way he did in the finals, like every single series, and outplayed like Pascal Siakam or something, then this would basically put TJ McCollum as a star status. But he didn't do that, obviously. He wasn't a number 2. I'm just giving an example, kind of interesting. But that's what I'm going for.
Okay, so my definition and criteria of a star. A star is someone who can lead their team or help lead, basically be a number 2 guy, to moderate success while also accomplishing availability, reliability, and league-wide recognition. So I have 7 criteria, but you only have to hit 4 to qualify. But some cuts still had to be made because I had quite a few guys that had 4 of the 7 requirements. Requirement 1, All-Star 2 of the last 3 years. Requirement 2, win a major award twice in the last 3 years, which is either All-NBA or All-Defense. Win at least 40% of your games over the last 3 years, so kind of like the Superstar, but just kind of a lesser bound. You guys still play in 2/3 of your games in the last 3 years. Your current stat line for this last season, points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks, have to add up to 30 or more, just showing production. And then the last 2 are subjective. Can be the best player on half the teams on the NBA if they were on that team, or they pass the eye test.
Now we're on to my star definition and criteria. So my definition is someone who can elevate their team to at minimum the playoffs with a competent team around them. So, I wouldn't say this for my definition. They have to do it every single year, but I think it's got to be the majority of the years. And even if it's 2 out of the 4 years, there's got to be a really good reason why, as far as like not having a competent team, why they missed the playoffs. So with criteria, like I said before, it doesn't have to hit every criteria point. It must be healthy for the majority of the last 4 seasons. I would say for stars, it's probably a little bit less than the superstars. I would say majority is probably closer to 50 of the 80 games. I think that's a little bit more fair than having to win awards. Got to make the playoffs with competent team at least twice. So that was my number. I put 2 out of 4 years to kind of hit on that definition point. And then you got to have at least 2 of the 4 last years be all-star appearances. I think if you only have 1 out of the 4 years, that's just not enough to be considered a star. But if you have at least 2, you can definitely be in that conversation for sure. Solid stat line. So what I mean by solid is by looking at their production, you know that it can make a meaningful impact to them winning. So if they made the playoffs and they had, Alperen Şengün's a perfect example. If he can put up 21, 8, and 5, 28, 8, and 4 on decent efficiency, that's good enough for me to say that's a solid stat line that you can tell impacted winning and made him an all-star. And a good leader. I think a good leader, you could, and I guess with this point, I guess I could kind of put in, doesn't have to be the elite alpha, but kind of has to be that second, third best player type of player on the team. Obviously, the better you are, or the higher the hierarchy you are on the team, the better for me as far as this point goes. But if you're a vocal leader, if you can kind of tell you're the best player on the team, but maybe you're not quite an alpha, but maybe you're the best player on the team, then that could be justifiable for you to be a good leader for sure, as a star at least.
All right, so all the stars that we agree on, there are 19 total. We have Bam Adebayo, Karl Anthony Towns, Paolo Banchero, Devin Booker, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Haliburton, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, and Damian Lillard. Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, Alperen Sengun. I don't know. Şengün.
There you go.
Okay, I'll put an H in there next time.
Well,
Victor Wembanyama, second year. We're all on the consensus, but I mean,
yeah, he's
makes
probably on
sense.
track to be. I won't go there yet.
No.
Oh yeah,
No,
no,
don't go there.
no, we can't even put Ann on
We don't
there
have
yet.
enough. We don't have enough. Yeah, we don't have enough time for that.
No, we don't.
No.
And then Trae Young. So Payton, you just gave us your definition criteria.
Mhm.
You can go ahead and go first with your first guy.
Yeah. So Scottie Barnes.
Why?
I don't know. I asked him
I
that
don't-
before we did the video. I was like, "Why did you use that picture?" Even a couple days ago, I asked him that.
If I told you that was the best picture I could find,
No,
would you
he
believe
just,
me?
He just needs to give us a funny picture just to chill.
No, that's ridiculous. Yeah. So I think he meets the criteria of being the best player on the team.
I'm sorry. Even Scottie Barnes is listening to you, and he's like, do you believe what you're saying? Like, are you sure?
Yeah, do you
Do you actually
What do you
believe?
mean?
That's the way he's looking at it. Like, do you actually believe what you're about to say? That's why he's looking at you.
Anyways, I do believe what I'm about to say. I think he's overall the best player on the team. At least this last year and this last couple years. I know that obviously they haven't won a lot of games, but I think his production for his games have been pretty solid. Just, the last couple years he's put up almost 20, about 19 and a half. We'll call it 20 points, 6 assists, 8 rebounds. I know obviously he's not a great 3-point shooter, but being that there's guys like Amen Thompson, who's not quite a star, but I think we all can agree he's really close to that jump, who haven't been an all-star like Scottie was his last year. I think that we can say that he can at least be mentioned as a star because he's also a really good defender like Amen Thompson, but he does a little bit more offensively. Obviously, he gets the ball a bit more, but he kind of looks to me like a player that if he was on a better team, he could be considered a little bit higher on our list, cumulatively, I think. But since he's on such a bad team, who I feel like, in my opinion, has guards that don't really know what they're doing and a big next to him that is very average in Jakob Poeltl. And I'm not saying he's a bad player necessarily, but just the team built around him. I know RJ Barrett is supposed to be sort of that next guy, but I feel like with the two-way ability that Scottie has with his playmaking, he just means a little bit more to the team than RJ Barrett. And then also you got to look at his availability. So I said most games, I said about 50-ish. He's hit that every single year he's played. Obviously, he's had 4 years. And then he's won first team all rookie his first year, which, isn't a big thing, but it's just another personal accolade he can add. But yeah, so aside from, his 3-point percentage, I think he's all right efficiency wise. I mean, not a lot of guys are great free throw shooters anymore, it seems like, but yeah, he meets a lot of my criteria, even though his team hasn't won a whole lot.
So for me, he hit only 3 out of the 7.
So he's
he only has
off.
one also, and even if he did, he probably would be on the cutting block just because one all-star appearance, no major awards, less than 40% win percentage, and I don't think he would be the best player on half the teams in the NBA.
That would be where I agree with you. It's just a little different than my criteria, but I agree with what you're saying. Yeah,
and he shows flashes of being a star, but in the end of the day, he's still just young and inconsistent. And his defense is strong. I feel like I like his defense, kind of like
I really like his motor.
Most about his, but his offense is still just a little raw. If he was consistent on the offensive side, then it would probably translate better, especially winning more games since they don't have an alpha. I don't classify him as a leader or the alpha.
And Şengün spot,
Yeah.
If he was more consistent offensively, probably.
But yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just that he's just not a number. He's not shown he's in like a top 2 player,
like a for sure number 1,
like a for sure number 1. he could be kind of number 2. I could see it, but like I think it's just kind of forced now because like even when he played with Siakam, I mean I thought Siakam was the best player on that team. So I think, and also he's struggling developing. Like he's a great player, but he hasn't really. And I could be wrong because I haven't like taken that deep of a look on his stats. But he's been the same player since his rookie year. He's been really this good. I thought he was going to be better than this already. And that's just me. Like he was going to be elite. Like we're talking about leagues like Bam Adebayo, Devin Booker, right? There's no knock on this guy. He's going to be in the league for a while, but
my thing with that is I don't know exactly. I think it's probably, if I were to answer your question, I guess for the question that I would ask, I would say, what is making you think that he's not developing necessarily? Because if you look at the production, he's developing. He went from 15 to 19 points per game. The steals went up, the assists went up, the rebounds went up. The only thing that's honestly got a little worse is, well, not last year, but this year was his efficiency. Last year he was the most efficient he's ever been in his career from all parts of the court. So I don't know if I would agree that he's not developing, because I feel like when you say that, you're only giving him 1 year between last year and this year to say, oh, well, he's not developing, but he's only 23. Like, I don't really think that's a fair argument for a guy that's 23, in my opinion, when he's only had 4 years. And last year was his best year of his career. So he is progressing.
Yeah, and also I think probably the biggest thing that kind of held both Geigh and I back is the fact that this team is so bad.
Yeah, me
and
too.
His
That
play
would've
isn't
been,
so good where it's
yeah.
like, yeah, he's a star.
And I'm just
Like-
looking at everyone else he was drafted with, just in comparison to those guys. Evan Mobley,
Well,
Jalen Green, Cade Cunningham, Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kuminga, Franz Wagner. I mean, he's better than Jonathan.
I was going to say, you could make a case that he's better than everybody in the top 10 that he was drafted with besides Cade and Mobley. I think you can make that debate. Now, would I say, yeah, I think you could make that debate. I think if you wanted to say Franz is better, then that's fine. But every other guy that was drafted with him outside of Cade, who is on Geigh R2 list, he's a star, and then Mobley, who's a star on Sam's list, and I think he's a star on my list as well. Then, it's like, okay, well, I don't know if that's much of an argument because, well, those guys are elite, so,
Yeah. Also, Sengun is in his draft class too.
Yeah, but he was a little bit different where he was drafted late and the pick got traded, and a bunch of teams whiffed on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you want to throw him in there, he's still a top 5 player in the class. So
yeah, I guess he was rookie of the year, so I'm just like, oh, why isn't he like dominating, like beating these guys out? But it's like it's not a bad progression. It's just
it was a decent rookie class for what they're expected to do.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Let's move on.
Ready for your next guy?
Yep. Yeah, Paul George. For me, man,
George is he's not a star.
Well, yeah, oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry, viewers or listeners, if I forgot about you. I forgot we were also doing Spotify, so I gotta say it out for you. Yeah, I got Paul George is not a star on my list. For me, it's kind of different with him as far as like I feel like my exact reasons, because I feel like for him it has a lot to do with team success is a thing, and I know that he's had playoff games the last 4 years. Like I know that the Clippers were usually pretty good. Philly didn't make the playoffs this year, and he was hurt a lot of the time. But when this is kind of a good example of when to bring up like what Geigh was talking about as far as like selling. Paul George sells some games bad in the playoffs, even though they've made it to the Western Conference Finals. What year was that? 21. 21, I want to say, yeah. And then they smoked it completely, and he had a pretty bad series, I want to say. I mean, I want to say the whole Clippers team had a bad series. I mean,
I was gonna say the Clippers didn't smoke it.
The Clippers,
he did.
You said the Clippers didn't smoke it. He did.
Clippers, yeah. He smoked it was either game 1 or game 2. He had to make one of 2 free throws, missed them both, which led to the
there you go.
DeAndre Ayton alley-oop to win the game.
There you go. So he barely hits the qualification of winning, some kind of award or an all-star at least. He only did that twice out of the last 4 years. And it's not necessarily his fault, except it is in a way because he doesn't hit my health requirement of playing 50-ish games. He did play 56 and 74, but then he also played 31 and 41. And so it's just a little bit too wishy-washy for me. So yeah, that's kind of what I got. And then on top of that, his production has gone down, but at the same time, I don't completely blame him for that because I know he's getting older and he does get hurt a little bit more often. At least recently. So I don't completely hold that against him, but that's kind of also just what goes into being a star is that if we see that decline, and I think for a star, Paul George is probably the lowest you guys have for points per game for a star, right? At 16 last year. So he's definitely going down in points per game. And so, with that and his efficiency took a nosedive last year. And I get it. They didn't have Joel Embiid, but that's kind of my point is that if you for sure need a Joel Embiid or you for sure need a Tyrese Maxey to put up the same kind of production and efficiency you're putting up with the Clippers, I mean, maybe you're just not that guy anymore. So you go ahead.
I do have to say that he does meet your games requirement.
Okay. He probably barely meets it. But he also had 2 seasons where he had significantly less than that.
9-19.
But either way, it's not like mine, or it's not like yours where you have to hit a certain amount. Mine's just you don't have to hit all of them necessarily. And he doesn't. I don't think he hits most of them.
Geigh, you want to go first for this one?
Yeah, I think I do give him. I give Paul George a lot of credit for what he's done a little bit in the past, but also that his season wasn't. I mean, yeah, he had a pretty bad season actually, but I give him a down season. Last season was good. Last season was actually the complete opposite, right? When he was on the contract, he was looking for a contract. And
wasn't the complete opposite.
Almost.
But no, he had the lowest points per game he's had since 2019 or 2020.
I'm thinking about maybe 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he was pretty good. When Kawhi was mostly out,
he was solid.
He was very solid.
Yeah.
And I mean, and he's one of the only players who still.
But then the year before that, he didn't win any awards because he was hurt. He only played 30 games.
Yeah.
So you're talking about 1 season out of my last 4.
Yeah. That's true.
But
my criteria is really simple too. It's just show that you can be top 2. He's always been a top 2 guy. I don't remember a team where he has
top
been
2 on his team.
Yeah, I don't know if he's been lower than that ever.
Well, I mean, he was the top guy in Indiana. He goes to OKC. He's with
just
Russ.
because you're the second best player on the team doesn't mean you're a star.
Even today, look at the
Rockets.
I guess Tyrese is. Who would you say is the second best player on the 76ers? I don't think it's Joel right now.
Well,
what do you mean best?
We have Joel and Maxey both as
current.
Yeah. Yeah, Joel Embiid is better than Paul George when he's healthy. Yeah.
When he's healthy. I said this year, though.
Well, are you accounting for when they're healthy or no?
Well, it's kind of weird because we're counting Joel Embiid as a star, but Paul George doesn't get the same treatment because Paul George.
Well, I mean,
he doesn't
Joel
have an MVP.
Did win an MVP a few years ago.
That's true.
So,
but I think
he doesn't have the All NBA team.
Yeah, the few All NBAs. What makes him weird is he's 4-time.
He has a few, but he doesn't have. When's the last? Yeah, I was gonna say, when's the last time he's had
2021.
one?
Yeah, he's getting up there.
But yeah,
even then he's still.
I mean, I would. My bad. Go ahead.
He's still a top 2-way lockdown wing, and he's still often tasked with guarding the best player on the court on the opposing side. So,
which usually these days gets the team fried. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, you're gonna get fried when you play
2 years ago. 2 years ago, you could do that easy, but now he's just a little bit too. He's not as agile as he was with the Clippers. maybe it's because he's hurt. He was hurt a lot too, and didn't actually like. That's what I'm saying. Is it's hard to really know, but I remember him being pretty good 2 years ago. But I don't remember his last year with the Clippers being that good defensively. He was solid, and then this last year it was not good.
I'm looking at last year. Last year I was right, that he did
Where
have
he was
a pretty
just
good
an all-star.
season. Yeah, but
he had
a good season though.
But he wasn't good enough to make an All-NBA team, and he played
No,
74 games, so he
But
wasn't that good.
Even that good. We had a good season, like star. We're talking about stars. I'm not trying to make the argument he's a superstar, but he was like the second best player on that team.
Well, who else was going to be? Who else was going to be the second best player? No, I think he was probably, or I guess it could have been
him or Kawhi.
Yeah, were they both healthy last year though? I'd have to look at it.
Yeah.
Even then, I think James Harden has a case to be number 2, and Kawhi, in my opinion, is the best player on the team when he's healthy. And James Harden was probably the best player on the Clippers the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think you could make a case. I think you could make a case for it. But anyways,
I think you guys will like this kind of analogy. So 2 years ago, we had someone that all three of us actually agreed on stars because Paul didn't. He only believes that they were superstars, and then you're not a superstar. But I feel like this could be Paul George's if this last year, and I think the biggest thing for UP is he probably this year kind of left a bad.
It stung pretty bad because 16 points per game makes me think he's falling off.
Yeah, and if he has even if he has a better season than this last season, but it's still not to like where he was with the Clippers.
It's like 17. Oof.
He might be kind of falling off.
Yeah.
And 2 years ago, all three of us had Bradley Beal as a star.
Man. Yeah, I mean,
and I feel like this could be very reminiscent.
Yeah, exactly.
This could be very reminiscent
because he's on a big contract that's I think fully guaranteed long term, like Bradley Beal's contract. So, but I mean, obviously, you'd much rather have Paul George than Bradley Beal right now. So it's not like
for sure.
Yeah, but we can move on to the next guy here.
Yep. Who's the next guy?
J-Dub. A lot of people aren't gonna like this one. Look, for me, and I don't think I fully explained it to you, Sam, but it wasn't ever a thing where J-Dub wasn't good enough. It was always that he hasn't had enough time to be that good, if that makes sense. So like they won a championship and he was a big part of that, but he also had bad games. So I mean, it is what it is. He wasn't the best player. He was being anchored by the MVP. And I'm not saying he didn't play a factor in that.
Who would it be? You play with who would not play second fiddle to Shai this year?
Well, that's not my point. My point is that he had that guy. He had that guy. But so it's going to mean a lot towards your winning. I mean, that's what you were talking about with your per, right? Or was that your pie? Either one of them.
That's superstar stuff. I'm looking at like their
exactly, and you were talking about SGA being up on that list and how much impact he had on winning that championship, and he did. And I think Jalen Williams will be at one point the star. I think once he gets his own team, but it's hard for me to put him in that category when he hasn't been that guy ever, and he's kind of doing that JB thing, but I don't think he's as realized as JB yet. I don't think he's had a long enough track record of doing it like JB's done it on a winning team as the second guy who people say could be the best player on the team. That we had as superstar as Jayson Tatum, who was a superstar on our list. So that's my only thing with him. It's not that he's not good enough or anything, or they haven't won enough games yet, but I have to see the Thunder continue to keep this. In the last 2 years have been phenomenal. Don't get me wrong at all. But he's got to continue to put all-stars under his belt, or he has to go to another team and probably get on an All-NBA team, because I don't think any of us think he's going to be an MVP type of guy. But I think if he got his own team, and reminiscent to Harden, I think he could be an All-NBA type of guy and average 25, 26 a game and be a playoff team every year. But he was
All-NBA.
He was All-NBA and All-Defensive team. He was
but how many? But that's what I'm saying. No, I'm not saying that he hasn't done it. I'm saying he's got to keep stacking those.
But that's star, bro.
You think
How many
you think
stars?
Yeah.
you think he's
I don't
gonna
think
stack? You think he's gonna keep stacking them every single year on the Thunder?
I mean, this year he could be a star.
Good.
He could just be a star.
I mean, yeah.
Like he can get paid somewhere too. Like
But
all defensive team.
but he's not gonna leave unless they trade him. I don't think as the second. I don't think as the second guy he's gonna make. I don't know. Maybe if the Thunder keep being the 1 seed and winning 7 or whatever, how many games they won this year, maybe he can be a third team. But how many times is he going to make a second team All-NBA as the second guy? Maybe once in his career if he were to stay with SGA's whole career.
All the old heads have to retire or start falling off more.
Yeah, but then there's going to be guys behind him just as easily, you know?
I mean, yeah. But, I mean, if we're looking at all NBA teams, technically, by definition,
he's had one. He had one really good year.
He's the third best number 2 option this year, behind Cat and Mobley. By definition, because he was all on the All NBA teams.
But just because you're on an All NBA team doesn't mean you're the first option or the second option. It doesn't correlate with optionality.
I mean, well,
it's just who are the best players.
Because Mobley and Cat also had teammates.
Or who's the best players?
Also had teammates get All NBA.
I think he's better than Scottie.
So here's what I'm saying is I'm not saying he didn't have a good year. He had an awesome year. But he needs to stack more than 1 year for me. Because this is out of 4 years, you got to remember, for me. So just because he did it 1 year doesn't mean the other 2 years in the past don't matter.
I mean, last year he was pretty good too. He just
didn't have any awards.
He didn't get the award, but he was definitely pretty good.
I mean, he was good, but he wasn't. But think about this. He was just as good as Paul George was this year. Production-wise. He averaged the same amount of points. I think I didn't look at assists and rebounds.
No, he averaged 3 more points.
Oh, okay, my bad. I was talking about 2 years ago with the Clippers, the second year, wasn't it?
Gotcha.
Well, even then, I guess it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's not even last year. The last year with the Clippers. I don't remember who we were talking about that had 19 a game. Either way, and he was efficient that year, but like they didn't win a championship like this year. He didn't make an All-Star game, so
he
didn't get any.
They were also
awards.
really young. Like that was the first taste that OKC's had.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Experience since PG was there.
Don't blame him.
They got it last year. What do you mean?
What do you mean?
I'm talking about last year.
You say OKC?
Yeah,
I'm talking about last year.
Technically 2 years ago. But the time we record this, it only happened like a month ago. But I'm not saying, like I told you guys, it's not that it's the same thing you guys are saying basically about Anthony Edwards. It's not that he's not that guy yet, but I have to see at least one more year of him having this similar year of personal accolades or just I don't know. I just need to see one more All NBA year, I think.
Do we have
another All Defense team that could work too?
Do we have another person who's a counterexample to this? Because I get what you're saying, and I'm trying to see if you're consistent here. Maybe you are. Maybe Zion. Is Zion?
I mean, I honestly, and I'll retroactively say this, I would swap out Barnes with Jalen Williams, but I think they're pretty even. Okay. Because, like I said, I think Scottie Barnes has to try to be the guy every single night. So, and I think he does a little bit more like overall for the team. Like he does the rebounding, he does the defense, he does the playmaking, he does the scoring. That's who it was when we were talking about 19 last year. So that's what Scottie Barnes had last year. So basically, what I'm saying is that if Scottie Barnes had SGA, we would look at him like J-Dub. And I'll leave it there. Okay, we can go to the next guy.
Yeah, I think it's best that we leave it there.
For sure. All I'm saying is Scottie Barnes has RJ Barrett.
Bro, it just keeps getting more intense. You're just raising apart every time.
For me, it's pretty simple with Sabonis. I feel like, and it's not really his fault either. Prove himself?
Does he need to prove himself? Like, I'm just saying, based on what you said with Jalen, does he need more time?
No, because he's old.
I don't think he needs more time.
He's old, but his problem is that he doesn't really ever do anything in the playoffs, or he misses the playoffs. So he has great production, but for me, he's just not really a winning player besides that one really good year the Kings had when they lost in the first round. Great first round, but it wasn't enough. And then when De'Aaron Fox left and the team was just not as good in general, and even the team next year, I think we can agree, like, they're not going to make the playoffs in the West with the team they have next year. So, like, yeah, they can make the playoffs, but doesn't really matter if you're just constantly either a first round exit or you don't make the playoffs like last year, like this year.
Yeah. So with last year, 2 years ago, they won 46 games still, and they just didn't make the playoffs because the West was so stacked.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily faulting him for that. He also was not the number one guy on that team. It was Fox. So
Okay.
you can't really fault playoff success. As a superstar, you can fault.
I think
playoff.
you can fault it to a lesser extent, for sure.
Yeah, to a lesser extent.
Yeah.
But this year, the Kings totally, like, they might be a fire sale by the trade deadline. Sabonis, DeRozan, Levine, all of them, fire sale. Get them all out. But something I think you failed to recognize, and I feel like this is huge, because you were saying how J-Dub and Paul George don't have those All-NBA teams.
He does win awards.
Sabonis has,
he does.
He has two. And also, here's something really interesting. He made All-NBA third team 2 seasons ago, and he wasn't even an All-Star. You know how hard that is?
He's hated on.
That's
so
hard.
I
don't know what that has to I don't know what that has to do with my point, but that is messed up.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's interesting.
That is messed up, though. Yeah, that was the one thing that I think makes him on the verge of getting into this into the start conversation, is that he is one of those guys that you give him certain years and he can make a third team All NBA, or he can have an All-Star. He can have All-Star games. But if you're not winning,
he's 10th most triple doubles in NBA history. And he also is the 6th player to have 60 or more double doubles for 3 straight seasons.
But what does it do for the team besides just stat padding, just garbage trash stats?
True. I think
he can do all this, but if they're not either making the playoffs or getting past the first round ever in his whole career, what does it matter if he has all these flashy production stats? Now the awards, I'll agree on.
What about Victor?
He's in his second year. What about him?
Yeah, but he doesn't have any of that.
He's in his second year. What year is Sabonis in?
Okay.
9 or 10?
Okay. I mean, just using the statements that you just said in the last minute.
Longer than Victor's been in the league.
Yeah, but like you said, like the winning, like that doesn't sit right with me, because they won 40 games this year.
So there's
even though they were bad.
So basically, they lost 46 more games than they won. Okay.
Yeah, but we're not faulting him for that.
Playoffs.
As DeRozan and Levine.
It's his fault too. If he's that good, if he's the star guy on the team, he's got to put impact into winning those play-in matches, to winning the extra games down the stretch that you need.
You consider him you just say they're not a competent team, or they are a competent team. That's your criteria. I'm going back to your criteria.
I would say
they are competent, but they can't win.
I would say, if you have, it was weird this year. Okay, even if let's say we throw out this year. You have a really good year the year before that, and you lose in the first round, or was it 2 years ago? They lost in the first round of the Warriors, right?
They lost in the first round of the Warriors.
That team is very competent. That team was very competent. But they just didn't get it done. They were basically like the Rockets this year. I think he's basically like Şengün, but he's a lot older, and I wouldn't say he's out of his prime, but I don't know. Yeah.
You don't have the back-to-back rebounds leader in the league as a star, and he would have been a 3-time if he would have had.
He can have all the rebounds he wants, but if he doesn't win games, I don't
triple
really
doubles, double doubles, like he contributes to his team.
Contributes, but that's not on a high enough level for me, I guess.
I mean, I guess he hasn't had 2 All-Star appearances, but he's been, I guess, do we count play-in as playoffs? No.
But what I would say is Katie's gotten out of the first round more recently than Sabonis has. Either way.
Okay.
All right.
All right, let's move on to Gauge's or Sam's.
Yep, it's mine. Let's see. Okay, so my defense, I have 2. First one, I have Cade Cunningham is not a star.
Okay.
Okay. So out of my 7 criteria, he hits only 2 of them. He's only been an All-Star once. He's been an All-NBA once, which is good. He's
Very good.
projecting. I'm gonna start off my argument with he's projecting. He's
Okay.
probably there next year.
Okay.
He's probably number 36 or 37 for me. So he has the All-Star, has the All-NBA. He has not won 40% of his games in the last 3 seasons. Very close. I think they were at like 38, 39%. If the Pistons are just like they were this last year, he's going to get there. He has not played 2/3 of his games. He had one season where he missed a decent amount of time, but just like I said, he plays like 50 games next year. He's going to hit that mark. And I still don't think that he's the best player on half the teams in the NBA. There are those injury concerns. He only played 12 games 3 seasons ago. But like I said, with my criteria, I only look at the last 3 seasons. That season's going to be written off. Yeah, he just needs one more year of success. That's all it comes down to. He barely missed the mark because of that one season where he only played 12 games.
Not the best team, not the best player on half the teams in the NBA. Let's go ahead and let's see if we can.
Yeah,
fact
that
check
one kind of surprised me too.
Let's see if we can fact check that one. Portland.
It's got to be on the cusp though.
Yes. Let's start with let's start. I mean, I was gonna say let's start with the good teams.
Oh well. I mean, the Detroit were 6th seed, right? That's a good team.
Yeah.
And he was the best player on that team, on that good team.
Yep.
So this is like half the teams. Would he be the best on the Hawks? Trey? Maybe?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think he's better
Trey?
than Trey. I think he was better than Trey this year. I don't know. And I would probably bet on him being better than Trey next year, but you can't compare like their careers because Trey has 2 more years on him, I want to say.
Yeah. How about Chicago? I give him Chicago.
Yeah.
I'll give him
Easy.
Toronto. I'll give him Brooklyn. I won't give him the 76ers. I'll give him Charlotte.
Yep.
I'll give him Washington. All right. How many teams is that? I just went through
9 or 10 or something.
9 or 10. Okay, Utah. Yeah, I give him that.
Yeah.
Not the Spurs. Pelicans.
Oh. Yeah.
Pelicans
over Zion. Yeah.
Portland.
Yeah.
You're
getting close.
Sacramento.
Yeah, I would say I would rather.
Well, obviously he would.
I would
obviously
rather
he'd say that. I don't think so. Not yet.
So what is that? 14?
Oh, well, we're not counting that one.
Oh, because you're not agreeing. Gotcha.
This spicy one, Pacers.
You could make a case, I think.
You can make a case, but I don't think it's definitive.
That's all I got. I'm not gonna go ahead and stand.
He's
up
on
here.
He's on the cusp.
Paulo. How about Paulo?
He's on the cusp.
How about Paulo?
Yeah, I would rather have Cade than Paulo.
That's kind of interesting.
But they play completely different positions, so it's kind of goofy. But
yeah, it's just preference.
I'll just keep it pretty simple for me. He is the primary ball creator on a playoff team last year, and I think he's had a lot worse of a team than most guys would come into the league having, at least for the first 3-4 years. So I think that matters. And the fact that he has been healthy for, I think I saw it was 64 or 62 games out of the 3 of the 4 last seasons. Yeah, he had that weird, what'd you say was calf, I think it was?
I don't remember.
It was a calf or a hip or something, but he missed that whole season. But the other 3 years, he was completely healthy, so that was cool. He doesn't have 2 out of the 4 years of, because if I want to do it for J-Dub, I have to do it for Cade. He doesn't hit the 2 out of 4 all major awards or all-star appearances, but he hits, I think, every other my criteria besides maybe like overall winning. But last year he went to the playoffs, and I think they gave New York a really good run as the 6th seed as their first year. So yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with what you're saying, Sam. He's definitely ascending to that kind of guy that can be an all NBA guy, an all-star with the primary creation and the alpha guy kind of guy. And I think he's known to be a really good leader too, for the team in general. So that was one of my criteria as well. You have to be a good leader.
In all honesty, I didn't think that he deserved All NBA. I don't think he should have gotten it. But with the fact that, like, if we remember how we thought of the Pistons 3-4 years ago, and he got them to the playoffs, it's like, here you go, just take it. Like you need this, man.
Well, then I would make the same case that people or the voters are like, okay, fine, we have to give J-Dub All NBA third team because he's on the number 1 seed on the West.
I agree with that. I agree that he shouldn't have gotten.
Like it's I don't disagree that I don't disagree with you about that, but I think it's the same thing. Whereas like you took this bad Pistons team, and it was also why JB Bickerstaff was known to be a really good coach this year because they went from the depths to the 6th seed. So yeah, that's what I got on Cade, man.
Geigh, anything to add?
No, I didn't even no one expected the Pistons to be this good. And when you're on a team that can bring a player who can bring up this team to that level, 6th seed. I mean, it's the East. Like I don't look like the East is kind of as much.
They took the Knicks to a strong 6-game series.
Yeah,
that could have been 7 easily.
Yeah, I really thought that franchise was doomed. Like for a while, I thought Cade was I thought his career was just cooked. That's it. Like,
yeah,
they haven't had a good team since Rodney Stuckey, Josh.
That was not a good team.
They
were all right.
That was a playoff team. Okay, it was Stuckey,
team,
Drummond,
maybe. Josh Smith,
Monroe,
washed.
Blake,
Greg
Josh
Monroe
Smith,
was washed.
Blake
was not on that team.
Blake was not on that team. That was old team, but they made the playoffs. I thought
they made the playoffs that year with
Blake
as an 8 seed, and then they got swept. I want to say, or lost in 5
Hawks?
by the Bucks.
With
that team was better than the guys you were mentioning. That team sucked.
Yeah.
That because everyone was like, this is the Sons of the East, just like they got Brandon Knight, Isaiah Thomas, and Goran Dragic. They got 3 bigs: Josh Smith, Greg Monroe, and Andre Drummond. That team was bad. That team sucked. That team sucked, dude.
But that's my point. Like I don't know.
But the Blake Pistons team was good, but they had no business in the playoffs or nothing.
There are 2 teams that I think basketball is good when they're good. That's Detroit and that's Chicago. Like if those teams are good, NBA is good. But
nah, don't agree. I'll agree with the Bulls, but not the Pistons. I'm good on that.
Yeah. So nothing to add on Cade?
Nope, we're done.
Okay. All right, then my last one. This was probably my spicy one. Morant is not a star.
Okay.
So you both think that he is.
Sam, we could just move on if you want to. It's okay. We can just leave this here.
I got you.
Okay.
So he only hit 4 out of the 7 requirements. He's only made 1 All-Star, not any All-NBA or All-Defensive teams, and he has not played in 2/3 of the games. Obviously, I can't bring up John Morant not being a star without bringing up the off-the-court issues with the guns and the Instagram lives. And then it just also kind of brings up a bigger kind of factor. And this is more of like a superstar kind of fault, but to an extent you can bring it to the star level too. But his emotional maturity can be asked and called into question with just his emotional outbursts. And then when the NBA said, okay, you can't do the gun anymore, so he does a grenade celebration. So
he's a funny guy. And that's why. Sorry to cut you off, but that's why he's not a superstar for me, or even close to that. I would have guys closer to that than him, I think. But like I agree with everything you're saying. And the availability has been issues at times as well. I'd have to look at the games that he's missed, but we all know it's been an issue. And one of my criteria for the superstar was that you have to have no off-court issues, and obviously he's kind of known for that, him and Zion pretty much, and so that's why I didn't have it as one of my requirements in my star. But I do think that he is kind of an underrated, I don't want to say leader, but an alpha. He's definitely the alpha on the team. And so I think that kind of is worth something, and his production is good. For me, back-to-back All-Stars. And it's been a while. Trust me, it's been a while. But he's got 2 All-Star games. He's got an All-NBA second team. He's had playoff runs. So in the Grizz, aside from last year, they're usually pretty good. They're pretty solid. Now I don't know if that's going to continue because they just traded Bane, but I can't say I necessarily disagree with anything of any of your reasons why. It's just for me, with my criteria, I think he meets enough for me to consider him still a star, because you can't go from a star. I feel like we all considered him a star 3 years ago, and now he's not that guy anymore. I just don't think that's the truth, but I can't disagree with your reasoning.
I think he was up in the superstar debate 2 years ago.
Yeah, like that sounds accurate. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously his athleticism is off the charts.
His production is great.
But his defensive lapse and effort inconsistency are still often highlighted in reasons why they lose. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Big turnover issue. He's turnover prone, and it's probably going to get even worse this next year.
I mean, they don't have anyone else. Like, that's the thing. Like,
exactly, and that's why it's probably going to get worse. So
they've had good teams, though. I feel like it really went downhill when they traded Dillon Brooks. When they started, when I think the front office started doing dumb stuff, I think that's when it got
the Marcus Smart.
Yeah, Marcus Smart
acquiring that, and then trading Brooks, and
they just freaked out after.
They were desperate, and then they fired their coach. They were very desperate this year, and in the last few years. But yeah, I don't really have too much to add on to it. I see what you're saying for sure.
I just can't think of too many teams that wouldn't love to have Ja Morant as a point guard. That's the thing. It's
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean he's not a star?
I mean, and you can say the same thing with Cade, and just like Cade, one solid year of play, and he's back up in star.
But Ja has had plenty of, like, the only reason he sat out is because he did have one injury, but he also, like, that's just
off-court issues.
Yeah, 2 suspensions.
That's it.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad as, like, Zion.
But that's not one of my criteria. You can, it's going to sound kind of bad to say, but, like, you can miss games due to off-court stuff if when you play, you're averaging what he's putting up. Because he is putting up really good numbers. Always has. So, but that's really all I got on Ja.
Yeah.
Call 12.
Yeah.
Call 12. All right, Geigh, we're on to yours. Who's your first guy?
Julius
Randle.
Yeah.
J-Rand.
Yeah. And this is just because I like Julius Randle. I'm not gonna go ahead and say he's not a hard worker.
Well, you like Julius Randle, really?
Yeah, I do. He was a former Laker. I was there when he was drafted, and I was like, man, this is the guy.
Was that why you have AD as a superstar?
No,
makes sense. We're on to him, Payton.
So Julius Randle, just out of all my stars, has had the most monstrous, like, collapses, and hasn't really shown that he can perform in the playoffs. And I mean, he was overtaken by Jalen Brunson, and he was actually overtaken by, I think, someone else during his time in New York when he had the chance to step up. Before that, I think he was, who was his team before New York? He didn't have much success either.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
He was there for a year.
For 1 year, yeah.
No success. Definitely not like not clear cut second best.
And how bad were those teams, though?
Absolutely terrible. That's the thing. So, like, he's had a award, but like I said,
2 All-Stars and a third team.
His inconsistency just
4 years
bothers me. You don't know if he's a 3-point shooter. Is he a 3-point shooter? Like, do you consider him? He used to be.
When I watch him, I feel like he is, but whenever I, like, look up his production, I feel like it says the opposite almost.
Is he a defender?
I wouldn't trust him to defend.
What does he do?
He does score the ball. Like, just because he isn't the greatest defender, like, I don't think he's terrible. I definitely would take a lot of guys over him. But just because his, like, 3-point efficiency isn't great doesn't mean he can't score. I mean, if you look at the last, I think it's 4 years, he's averaged 23 points per game. So he's productive. I think, not this last year, but which would make sense because he went to a team with Anthony Edwards. The last 2 years before this one, he put up 24 and 25, I want to say. So he can score. One thing for me with him is that since he has been on a good team, he has made the playoffs. So he can win games, and he actually, in my opinion, I think if this year didn't happen, I would agree with you. Maybe I would say no, he's not, because he does fold a lot of the time. But this last year, maybe that's the difference between him and Paul George for me, is that, oh, and I don't remember the last time Paul George put up 25 a game. That might have been like 4 or 5 years ago, and Randle did it like 2 years ago. He showed that he can be the second guy, because he is the second guy on that Wolves team, and they can still go to the Western Conference Finals. So for him to be able to do that and leave the Knicks, whereas like he's had bad games on the Knicks, but this last year he had a really good year, really good playoffs with the Wolves, at least in winning terms. Now we could talk about box score and all that kind of stuff, but he showed he can win games as the second best player in the West Coast.
Yeah, I guess you could see that. But I will say that I think you just simply having Cat would be much better improvement over Julius. Like, here's the thing. Like, I think like.
Well, Cat has the productivity and all the awards and
Yeah,
the winning.
he has everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
Julius,
he has everything. That's
Yeah.
why he would be higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Julius is a gritty guy.
Yeah.
He'll do the gritty stuff, and that's
Like
I
they're
feel
both
like,
stars, but they're different. In my opinion, Sam, I don't know about you, but they're in different tiers of stars for me. Like I would definitely have Cat closer to 10, opposed to where Randall's closer to like 20.
Oh yeah,
You know?
yeah, and especially with and I know that Steph Curry was out when they played the Warriors in the second round, but like he was doing whatever he wanted.
Yeah,
in that series.
Yeah.
Against Draymond Green, and Draymond's still a good defender, but like he was getting whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
25, 7, and 7. Where in the regular season this year,
There you go. He put up 19. What's that?
19, 7, and 5.
Yeah.
So, like he played great in that series, doing whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
He was on the cusp for like why I would pick him as an all-star. Or as a star. He was on the cusp.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay. All right. And then your last guy, Geigh?
The last guy I had to leave out was Evan Mobley, or he should not be a star. But
just a second, let me.
Yeah. So the last guy is Evan Mobley, just not being a star, and that's because he's not the clear-cut 2 guy. I mean, that Cavs team is just great. It's really hard to be the clear-cut 2 guy. He might be the 4th best guy, and some days he's the 3rd, but I don't think I would ever put him on as the 2nd. So that kind of goes up against him. And then, that's the biggest argument I can make, because every other guy I put as my star is that second guy, at least. And so when you're in that competition, like I know I'm like really my criteria for star was like real easy, but like, hey, I don't think Evan Mobley makes the cut there.
I don't have too much to say about Mobley aside from the reason I had him as a star is because I just value how much defensive impact he has when he's on the court. I don't think the Cavs are a 1 seed this year or have, really any of the similar success. I mean, they'd still be good, but they wouldn't be a top seed as where they'd be a 6, 7 seed, maybe a 5 seed without him, I feel like, because of how strong, and not just him, it's Jared Allen too, but
Mobley and Garrett, not Garrett, Garland,
Darius.
Yeah.
Not defensively.
Defensively, Garland's pretty good at it. Defensively,
yeah, but
Garland
he's not making the same impact anywhere close to Mobley is, as far as overall impact on the game. I mean, Mobley has 2 NBA first team all defenses, and how many times has he finished he's finished what? He won Defensive Player of the Year last year, made an All-Star team, second team All-NBA, and then 2 top 3 finishes of Defensive Player of the Year. Garland might be a good defender for his height, kind of like a Fred VanVleet, but he's not known in the NBA as a good defender.
Yeah.
And then you also pair that with Mobley being able to be a really useful offensive player, getting better at shooting every year, and then his team wins a lot of games. There you have it. That's what I got to say about Mobley.
Yeah, so what I have to say about Mobley is like obviously Mobley got a lot better this year compared to last year, and so did Garland. But let's look at the alpha on their team. Tell me what Donovan Mitchell did better this year than he did last year. He had less turnovers.
He's basically the same player.
That was the only. It was the same player, but points went down, rebounds down, assists down, steals down.
Yeah, which I don't think is necessarily his fault. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Not necessarily, but I mean, if your role players around you are also getting better, it's then your star player should be getting less production.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The people around him are doing more.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that we talked about for like 5 minutes 2 years ago about Evan Mobley?
What is it?
It was his 3-point shooting.
Can't shoot.
Yeah, now he's a serviceable shooter, right? Let's look at his efficiency.
So 3 years ago, he was shooting 1.3 threes a game, 22%. What did he do 2 years ago? Shot 37% off of the same shooting, 1.3
on the same attempts.
Now he's shooting the same percentage and almost triple the amount of attempts.
He's trying.
So he did literally what we said
he's got to
do.
Yeah.
He's shooting 16% better, almost double percent from 3 years ago to last year.
He's basically like an elite 3-and-D big.
And 3 times more attempts. And who knows, maybe he gets even better.
And maybe when people talk about, this is how I would categorize a guy like Mobley. He is like one of those guys that is a very high quality star in their role. Like if you put him on his own team, sure, maybe we wouldn't categorize him as a star. But he is probably a top 2 player at what he does specifically as an archetype in the NBA. He's a shot blocker. He guards the rim. He can make threes on a decent amount of attempts. He's a lob threat, and he can play really good switch defense. He basically is the most elite role player that you can think of on this team. I'm just talking about role wise because he's not getting more touches than Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland are on the ball, but he is going to get more than Jared Allen and it was Isaac Okoro, but he got traded. Or DeAndre Hunter might take more shots than Mobley a lot of games. You know what I mean? So it's not like he's getting all these touches either. Like he's able to put up 18 a game off of being the 4th offensive skilled option. In that way, he is a star, in my opinion, because to be able to be that impactful on a team and be the 4th or 3rd option on offense and still be able to bring that defensive production, defensive player of the year, top 3 voting in 2 of the last 3 years. Some serious impact.
Yeah.
Like you think about those numbers.
He's one of the most versatile big men that we have in the league.
Yeah.
Where he can still guard guards. Like you see them playing, you're watching them play the Nuggets and Jamal Murray gets that switch. You're like, okay, I trust Mobley with this. Now imagine watching Zubac from the Clippers.
Or Rudy Gobert.
And Rudy Gobert. You're like, oh no. And Rudy Gobert's a defensive player of the year candidate most of the time.
And then on top of that, you have the 3-point shooting that he can do that those guys can't do.
I like how we're all just like talking about like our stars, just like we're not really too strongly. We're just kind of having a discussion because I feel like I would put Mobley over Paul George now. That's just me. Like
there you go, and that's what I have. That's all I got to add to Mobley, though.
Yeah. So, is there anything else you guys need to add?
Wait, do we? If we
some honorable mentions.
Yeah,
honorable
what are you doing, Gage?
Honorable mention.
No.
One honorable mention.
No.
Huh?
One honor. There's one.
Okay, mine's Ben Thompson.
No. Honorable mention that we didn't have. That we all didn't have.
Nobody had.
That we all didn't.
Nobody had him in.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody had.
I thought you just.
But this
this
guy is. He's like, a little bit high.
Are you thinking of somebody?
Well, I think Geigh and I are on the same wavelength.
I don't know. I'm not thinking
It's-
of guys
maybe.
in my
You say it.
head.
Yeah, it's Zion.
Yeah.
None of us had Zion as a star.
Well, he doesn't play enough games, and he doesn't really have any awards, and his team is always really bad. So the only thing he has going for him is empty stats, pretty much.
And he has an off-the-court issue.
I'd
but
trade
we're
for
not
him,
gonna
though.
talk
That
about
too. But that wouldn't be a
We
star
won't
thing for
talk about
me. But either way,
I'd trade for him though.
yeah. If
I
you
can fix him.
like didn't have to trade all your assets for him that the Pelicans want, yeah.
I think the asking price is coming down more.
I
The
think
more
Trey
he
Murphy's
doesn't
asking
play-
price is pretty close to like him and Trey Murphy are pretty close in trade value, I think.
Trey Murphy's really good.
Which is crazy to think, but I like Trey Murphy a lot. He
Yeah.
adds more consistent ability to impact winning than Zion does. I think in today's NBA, where like knock down 3-and-D shooter. But anyways, that's all I got to add.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, let us know what you think. Who are your superstars and stars in the NBA? Who got them right? Who got them wrong? And then while you're there, might as well subscribe to the YouTube channel, that MVP Momentum Podcast.
If you made it this far, thanks. Yeah.
Make sure to follow our NFL Spotify at NFL MVP Momentum Podcast. The links will be in the description.
I've been Sam Holcroft.
Gage all cover.
Ivan Payne Thompson.
Thanks for listening. Why is my name full? You're as PT Sam.